Hey everybody, my name is Jairus Copeland. Welcome to In Need of Attention. We're going to jump right into the conversation. I'm with a special guest today that I've known longer than I think anybody. I probably know better than anybody.
Yeah.
And that's not a boast, it's just the truth.
No.
She is a Emmy winner. No, I'm just kidding. She's a doctor.
Almost doctor.
Maybe when you're listening to this.
We'll see how long it takes to come out.
So don't believe what she says, but she's a doctor like Dr. Sebi. Okay, that's too far.
That's a lot.
Nevertheless, she's my sister. Her name's Micaiah Copeland. Micaiah Danielle Copeland or Micaiah Copeland?
Micaiah, either one.
Okay.
I mean, they're both my name.
I'm just putting your business out there, but
my government name
yeah.
is Micaiah Danielle Copeland.
What's your social? No, this is my sister.
83629.
Right. She is here. We're gonna get into her lane, her expertise. Hi.
Hi.
It's good to see you. It's good to talk to you. How are you today?
I'm like in between. I'm excited for this. I'm excited to see you.
Yeah.
It's been a day.
Yeah.
So
Same.
I'm just kind of like mixed in all different directions.
Same.
But yeah.
Well, what I'll tell you is what I tell everybody. Foundation of this whole thing. This is a safe space. This is a space that is meant outside of the sirens you hear to be safe for people, for them to feel comfortable, be vulnerable, and it'll go as well as your willingness to lean into it.
Yes.
We believe here that despite the fact that some people settle or some people are experiencing something that might not be what they maybe want or had for themselves, that there's more for them. That's what we believe.
Yeah.
And that despite what people have been given and have received, whether that's through their genetics, that's through the lessons they've been taught. I use the strong word of indoctrinated, which you and I were indoctrinated the same way.
We were. We were so indoctrinated. You are the most similarly indoctrinated human to me on the planet.
On the earth. Despite those things, we can be better.
Yes.
We can be better. And then thirdly, in order for all of that to even matter and make sense, you have to be open. You have to be stubborn in your belief that there's perspective to gain. Mm-hmm. You might just be wrong, and that the way you think, view reality, and experience it, your paradigm, might not be completely true, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And that for the listener who is in crisis, they are in the perfect place to be open because they have no other option.
Yes.
You had your fundamentals, your paradigm did not work, right?
Yeah.
As we both can attest to.
You're falling.
You literally. And the person who isn't there yet, and we don't want to be, you can listen to the two of us talk about this, the tensions we've been through, the tensions we're in, the proper responses, the wrong responses, the in-between responses, and learn from them so you avoid being in crisis to the same extent or in the same area, that sort of thing. So that's the foundation. That's the kind of background. In terms of what people should know about you, I'll put you on the spot. What's the proper background? What's helpful to know about you that will inform everything you're about to say?
Everything I'm about to say? I'm sure I will forget something.
Sure.
But that's, we'll start with, I have an ADHD brain, so it's a given I'm going to forget something.
Perfect.
I'll probably remember 2,700 things and forget one.
Awesome.
I am a mental health therapist, specifically a licensed professional clinical counselor.
Mm-hmm.
So that means I'm independently licensed. I have a practice that specializes in complex trauma.
You said it so quietly. I'm like, I would scream to people.
We specialize in complex trauma. Who is we? It's just me.
Right. But that's what I'm saying.
I specialize in complex trauma
exactly.
and multiracial issues. I'm a doc student at University of Cincinnati in counselor education with a concentration in multiculturalism. Mm-hmm. I'm an adjunct professor at University of Cincinnati in Wright State. And then technically I'm a yoga teacher, even though I don't actively do that right now. I'm an oldest everything, cousin, granddaughter, sister, child, all the things. Mm-hmm. That seems pretty important to how I view the world. I'm a multiracial individual, so that's important to how I see the world. I'm a dog mom. I almost said dog owner, but let's be honest, he owns me. I don't own him.
Yeah. So that's what we say behind your back. Yeah.
accurate. If you've met Luca, you know. Those are the things that come to mind off the bat.
Yeah. All helpful things, all helpful context. I would say, main reason I wanted to have you here, yes, you're all of those things, and you're my older sister.
Yes.
And so the relationship we have, the context of our conversations has always been one that obviously has helped me, and I've come to you for so much.
Yeah.
And in the seasons of not doing that or doing it differently, or we're adults now, I'm married, I'm in this house here, right? Like life has just gone so fast and changed all this stuff. It can be harder to have the frequency at which we used to talk and stuff. And so I thought, the value that you and I both get, I think now in a super cool way, because I give you value too.
You do.
I think it is worth sharing with people. And so I want your doctrinal like stuff, but I also just want like my sister too. And so I think this will be a fun episode just to learn more about me, learn about your expertise. And also a lot of people get to see things just from a perspective that I think, we share a similar paradigm in the faith we have. And the kind of anchor that is. I always say it's like Spider-Man holding the bus in two, right? It's like all the things that pull you, right? It's your life, it's the people, it's the tension. And then you have to have something, whether you believe in Jesus or not. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine. Please keep listening, because it's not all about that. You have to have something that anchors you. Yeah. And pulls you back to being able to not balance, but keep moving forward. Yeah. And for us, that's like our faith. And we've had different journeys and experiences with that. But we share that as well as our racial identity, almost to like the 0.0001%. Yes. But it's not quite the same.
It's close.
And that's science.
That is science.
And we also share the same set of parents. Yes. We share the same little sister.
We do.
Who has not earned the right to be on here yet, by the way. I just want to say that. And until she does.
I feel like the disclaimer you gave me of like, you can say whatever you need and want to say.
No, she can't.
You would not give her that free reign.
I give her a list.
You would not. You'd be like, these are the topics to avoid.
And I hope people can notice the difference in my tone of talking to you. And then as soon as I start talking about her. Yes. It has to be there, because that's the only thing she will respond to. But
she's definitely the littlest sister.
To the nth degree.
Like, yeah. You want to talk about her bio, it should just be like youngest child.
Right. Go. Yeah, literally.
But yes.
She's fun though. We love her. And when you listen, it's because I keep going. Keep listening. Don't stop.
Keep listening. We do love you.
And don't text me about it. But we share those things in common. And so I think the first question I'll ask you before we get into this entire thing, and we've been rambling and all that stuff. Yeah. What do you think in relation to how people respond to it is important to know about tension?
I think it's funny because even you talking about like Spider-Man pulling the bus, I was like, it's funny because I use a metaphor a lot of Tarzan. Of Tarzan, he swings through the trees, but he doesn't let go of the tree, like of the vine behind him, until he has one to grab onto. Because if you're not holding on to anything, you're just falling. Yeah. Right. And so I think tension is that space in between where, yes, even if it's just a millisecond for some people, because not everybody's standing on the bridge being Spider-Man holding the buses. Some people are just Tarzan, and so it's the split second where you're holding both vines, and so you're not actually falling, right? Whether or not you're moving is up to you and how you're swinging. And so tension is this space that has a lot of power. If I think of like, not to get too nerdy, but like physics and like
go there, please.
Torque and all of that stuff. That is not
confuse us, because I have a lot of science stuff I want to talk about that you know more about that will absolutely feel like misinformation, and you going here gives me the credence to talk about it. So please continue.
I have not taken a physics class since high school, so take that with a grain of salt. Sure. All these degrees I have, and it's been some years. Yeah. But I think of tension as this place that has a lot of power and a lot of potential. And so how much you swing, how much you move or don't move, you have the power over, but you are in this space, this discomfort, this pull, and it has a different power than you have when you're not in tension.
I'm grinning right now because it probably will have come out by now. I did an episode talking about energy within relationship.
Okay.
And that is attention, right?
Yeah.
And not in the way of like I make fun of like girls the way they're like, oh, the energy, like that sort of thing, but
yes.
more viewing it as like energy as a form of currency within relationship.
Yeah, an exchange.
Right? Like the energy I put into this is either matched or it's not, and I either have an issue with that or I'm okay with it, right?
Yeah.
And I came across the analogy I found, one from a reaction to my friend talking about this girl calling her an eater in the term that it's used. Okay. And that's all I'll say there. And what I really thought of though when he was talking about this was, I don't think she's the eater. I think you are, because you're giving nothing back in terms of the energy within this relationship, right? And so
you're consuming.
The framework I kind of made was like they're energy eaters, energy seekers, and energy breathers. And a person who's an energy eater is someone who just consumes everything. Yes. Everything around them, all the stuff. I'm going to go quick because I did a whole episode. You should watch it. I don't know what it's called yet, but it's about energy. That'll be in the title. Energy seekers, someone who seeks energy everywhere. Yeah. They consume, right? So think about me when I first really was working my career. I was watching, I was consuming so much, right? Like I'm watching all this stuff. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm skimming articles. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm seeking all this energy because I don't have it around me. And then when I get around people, I'm giving it to them. And they're going, wow, that's interesting. Wow, you seem like an expert, blah, blah, blah. But I'm really not. I'm just repeating the hard work of other people. And so when I get out of energy, I actually have nothing authentic and real that's mine to give. Nothing I actually labored for. I just spent time consuming. So what do I have to do? I have to go back. And I have to get more and more and more. And ultimately, you're giving energy, but you're not actually receiving the fruit of it because it's not yours. Okay. And then there's this third person that's the energy breather, right? And that's the person who you're probably listening to, right? It's the singer-songwriter, it's the preacher, it's the celebrity, it's the life coach, it's the therapist, the person who you look to and go, just their breath, just the weight, the gravitas of them, like the mass. When they speak, their words create enough kinetic energy in you that they breathe life into you to go, I need to make a change. I need to take action. I need to do this stuff. Yeah. In simple terms, that's the thing. Okay. The day I recorded that, yes, I was pooping before.
Great start.
And I was there for a long time because I'm known to poop for a long time. We won't stay there.
Genetics.
While I do. And it just hit me in my head, this idea of how those three things, and this is, I just so should not be saying this right now because it's just not in the place where I should put in front of people, but those three things likened and connected to stars and specifically like supernovas, white dwarfs, and black holes. Okay. Right. And the likening between them, please stick with me. This is so much. This is so
listening.
Much.
I'm a professional listener.
It came to me because I had this note in my phone of like, you know, there's been so much of my life feeling like I'm supposed to be this like star. Yeah. Like I'm supposed to be the one to get us out the mud, like that whole thing, right? And I have to be a superstar. And in reality, I don't want to be a superstar in the presence of this. I want to be a supernova. In that at the end of my life, the remnants of all of that I am is viewed as this like marvelous, beautiful spectacle. Yeah. And then the remnants of what I've given in the life I've lived is then other people are responsible with what I gave them. Right. Yes. And it's either going to be this amazing, beautiful National Geographic thing where this new star is formed, or the energy and the weight and the mass and all this just stuff I've developed and created and consumed myself turns into whatever the force and energy that someone else has, whatever they turn it into. And in fact, in that, if they're to the depth and like point of this as an eater, like an energy eater, they're a black hole. And in fact, a black hole can be bigger than a supernova in its size and its space and its mass and all it consumes, right? Like a black hole is where light goes to die. Yeah. And there are people you know that are where light goes to die, right? Like, and in that, You and I both have been that, right?
Yeah.
In relationships.
100%.
And then the seeker being this like white dwarf, right? Like this star that is smaller than the sun, meaning its light is limited because of the energy that it has. And it's only but so much mass. It's only but so much weight. It's only but so much force. I'm sorry to someone who actually knows about this stuff. This is just what I found on Google and all the links I clicked on. But in my mind, it makes sense because it connects them in a way where it's like, oh, sure, I can be an energy eater. But in reality, like, I could be a black hole.
Yeah.
Where the relationships I have, the people I love, the things I'm passionate about go to die.
Yeah.
And I can't find them. I can't get out of it. And the reason I prematurely have brought this thought to market, because I haven't thought it all the way through yet, is because of what I'm about to ask you. You and I have both spent time as black holes and supernovas.
Yes.
And white dwarfs. But resilience is something that is like a key for someone who's going through crisis, going through a hard time, struggling.
Yeah.
For a person who currently is on the spectrum of energy eater to black hole, can you define and tell me what resilience is and what that might look like?
I would say resilience shows up when you're a black hole. Not that it can't show up for a white dwarf or a supernova, but it grows. It really like expands when you're a black hole, because before I can define resilience, I feel like I have to define trauma. Sure. And there's so many definitions of trauma, and there's so many great definitions of trauma. I won't spend too much time on that, but trauma is when something overwhelms your resources. Sure. And so whether that's your internal resources, your external resources, whether that's both, trauma happens because your resources got overwhelmed. That's why the same situation is traumatic for one person and not another. Sure. So
I don't mean to interrupt you.
Go right ahead.
For the person who hears trauma and they just tune it out and go, oh, whatever. And when you say resources, I don't know what that means. Yes. Can you inform us on that as you're going? Yes. So resources is inherently vague when it comes to the definition of trauma. Sure. Just because it can be something as simple as, okay, if I'm in a car accident, do I have the physical resources to get out of the car, to be safe, to call 911? Do I have the insurance? What do I have in terms of external and internal resources? The resources are going to look different depending on the context. And so if I go for a scary medical procedure, right, someone who either doesn't find that same medical procedure scary or has done it before or whatever might have very different internal resources and external resources, also just of like health insurance and coverage and family support and all of those things. But if you're hit with a situation that you don't have the resources to deal with, and that's what I mean by internal versus external. That makes sense.
It's traumatic. Mm-hmm. And so trauma isn't this thing where like you fall on the floor and you like can't get up and you're just like gasping for breath. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. And so resilience is when, I like to think of it kind of in two ways. Either when you superhuman push through something when you did not have the resources for it, or after the fact, after the trauma is over, you grow. There's this unique opportunity to grow. Post-traumatic growth is a thing, right? That's how we grow our muscles. If you're in the gym, you have post-traumatic growth of there are little micro tears in your muscles as you lift. And as we repair those muscles, it makes your muscles bigger, right? Resilience is that just on an intellectual and emotional level. Mm-hmm. And so what are you doing that responds to, how do you respond to the trauma? That's where your resilience shows up. Mm-hmm. And so those are kind of the two ways I think of resilience as in the traumatic moment is one thing, but then also post-trauma. Yeah.
This is the moment where, so we were talking the other day and I was just kind of giving you my like whole premise of this whole thing, right? And I was talking about like responding to tension. Yes. Right. And we're using words interchangeably and stuff between like tension, trauma, incident, pattern, like whatever. Yes. But like how we respond to those situations and that stuff. And my whole thing, and like I explained in the first episode, you should go watch it. And listen to it. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the other places you get it. But as I was explaining, like the way you respond, right? It's primal in that, it's either fight or it's flight, right? And living a life of tension, how I choose to live my life, quite literally, is sitting in it, right? And that's uncomfortable, and it sounds great, but then you have to like live with me, or then you have to like be my sibling, or then you have to be my boss, right? And then it's difficult, it's messy, and you're going, this person doesn't care about me, or they wouldn't do this if whatever, and there's assumption, right? We were talking about like that as a premise, right? Like fight, flight, sit, right?
Yes.
And you go, oh, there's like 6 more F's. There's not just
there's
those
6
two.
F's.
And so this is the moment. Tell us what the 6 F's are. Explain it, because this is new to me too. So I'm learning something.
So there are 6 F's. There's fight, which is one of the ones you said.
And these are like responses to trauma.
These are trauma
tension.
responses.
Okay.
Yeah. I won't get into like what is the vagus nerve, but if you're super curious after you hear me say these 6 F's, Google the vagus nerve. It's kind of that part of your nervous system that these come out of.
Right.
Come out of is, I don't love that verb, but
we're here.
It's where this happens.
Yeah.
Right. So there's fight, which is literally like fighting, but also sometimes just posturing.
Sure.
And so that can be physically fighting. That can also be argumentative. That can look a lot of different ways. There's flight, which can be like a literal flight of like, hey, this kid broke my clavicle. I'm going to run in the circle around the neighborhood.
All right.
Because that may have happened.
Relax.
You might be a little bit flight.
That's misinformation.
So there's flight. And so flight doesn't have to be physical, though. It can be I'm tuning out. I'm dissociating. I'm flight.
Yeah.
There's freeze.
Freeze, okay.
Which is what it kind of sounds like, of like you freeze, different type of dissociation. But you can literally and internally freeze, right? Sometimes you might lose time. You might not. There's fawn, where you try and like placate the threat. It's almost like if I can make the source of the threat happy, I can survive the threat, or I can forestall the threat.
Sure.
Right.
We know that one.
Yes.
We know that one. Keep going. Sorry.
So there's fawn. Then there's flop, sometimes called fatigue. And that's, I'm going to basically hibernate my way through this threat. Like I'm going to just shut down, sleep until
it passes.
I'm going to numb out, and it's usually involves like at the very least a sleepy feeling. Right. So fawn, flop, and then lastly we've got flood, and that's like just complete emotional dysregulation. Sure. You're just flooded with all the feels. Yeah. And so that you'll know it if you hit you. Some of the other ones get a little more nuanced, right? I've said dissociate 3 different times.
That's one of the 5 Ds. Dissociate, dodge, dip, dive, dodge, and duck.
Of course. If you can dodge a wrench, you can
dodge
a
wrench,
ball.
You can dodge a ball.
But yeah, so those are the 6 Fs, and you don't get to choose which F shows up.
Sure.
You just F.
So you're maybe breaking in an early episode the whole concept of the show. When I say to someone, fight, flight, sit, how does sit either fit into one of those or push against those, right? Like in the way that I'm using it, like sitting in tension in terms of like pushing through something, going through it, as opposed to just falling into it.
Well, a lot of these, right, I've said dissociate. I'm not going to get too deep into what dissociation is, but it's basically you're tuning out, right? And so sit is the opposite of that. Sit requires a presence and a mindfulness of like, I'm present in the here and now, and I'm like, there's an aggressive intent to that when I hear you say that. Yeah. And so it's, there's fight, there's flight, there's something traumatic going on, there's a pull and a tension, but I am just sitting here immovable.
Right.
And not immovable because I shut down.
Which is,
Right. So I don't think I broke your whole concept.
Thanks.
I think I complicated it a little bit.
I need a job, okay?
But, I mean.
Yeah. So we've talked in the past too about, and there will be multiple times, so don't feel bad about it. Please correct me as I'm talking about this stuff.
Okay.
We talked about like DNA.
Yes.
Like the genetic makeup of a person.
Yes.
You know where I'm going.
I do.
I brought this up to someone the other day, like really like, you should be impressed with me. And they're like, yeah, it was a study done on rats. And I was like, okay, you're supposed to be a little more moved by
yes.
me bringing this to your attention. There have been plenty of
studies on rats, but it does also happen in humans.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so the study on rats or whatever it is that you told me that I've sought energy. I gave it to everyone I know.
Yes, I've heard you say it on many a stage and platform.
Too many times. Some would say, they're like, get new material. I'm like, I don't have any. Someone's an eater. No. Is this idea of like, we've done all this research, all this measurement of like passing trauma down, right?
Yes.
Generational curses and genetics. And I can't help but smoke a ton or have sex with a ton of people or look this way. I was born this way. It was given to me that my parents did that. My granddaddy did that. My great-great-grandma did that. And she didn't even have teeth. You know, like it goes all the way back. It's in me. And there's nothing I can do about that.
Yes.
And the reason I told everybody that is because you broke my whole mind of like, that's a thing, was you were like, people don't really measure though, but like the same is true with like resilience. Like you can literally like change your DNA. Like you can, and the way I interpreted that was like, you can literally be a new person, like a different person in terms of your genetic makeup, because in changing it and choosing to be resourceful and kind of like turning the corner, flipping it completely, you're now passing down something that is a tool in which people can use it to help them. And sure, it could be used in different ways, but like you're shifting completely the paradigm for someone going from I'm a victim and I'm stuck and I'm in this hole to I have the ability or the tool at least to make the choice that I want to get out or go this direction.
Yes.
I said all that to say, I guess, because
there's a question.
There wasn't a question there. How the hell is that true? And two, can you explain it in the proper way?
I will explain it as best I can.
Okay.
Because I am not, I don't specialize in genomics and epigenetics. So
I don't even know how to spell that. So.
There's a cap on what I know.
Wow.
But here's what I do know. So epigenetics is what you're talking about.
We're going to bleep that, by the way. We're going to just put a little
foul word, epigenetics.
Yeah.
But no, epigenetics is where, yes, your DNA changes and you can change your DNA, but it also is passed down. That's how, you have this generational trauma that passes down from 3 and 4 and 6 and 7 generations, right? Part of that is, there was some sort of harm, there was some sort of trauma. And when you have trauma, you overwhelm your resources, but your body holds on to that, right? And so there's almost like a fingerprint that is placed on you based off of the life you live, and you come in with this certain set of DNA, but then that fingerprint gets placed on top of it,
right?
And I'm using fingerprint, and now I'm second guessing that choice,
like Cheeto dust fingerprints
of metaphor. Just because it is as personal as your fingerprint will be, but it is something that evolves over your life. And so as you go through different experiences, how your DNA is read changes. And it's that reading that is where it codes for actual proteins, right? And so when that DNA is read differently or read in a different order, like if you went to high school and everybody was like, T goes with A and G goes with C, in like your high school biology class. Like that's what I'm talking about.
I got a C. Keep going.
I got a 5 on the AP bio exam.
That's a theme. That's a theme here.
But sure. When you were like learning about DNA and you were learning, certain ones go with certain ones, right. Your DNA can be misread. And so when you experience trauma, sometimes things change how they're read. And then also with resilience, sometimes things change when they're read. We don't research resilience like we should. I know I've told you this plenty of times, but I think / hope that is the direction that like some mental health research is going to look into resilience, because we had this huge boom just before my career started of looking at trauma. Everything's trauma informed, and now we've moved on to trauma invested. When trauma was not the lens through which everybody saw wellness and mental health.
Right.
Before I came on the scene. That kind of started to pop off probably 5-10 years before I entered the field. And then I think where we're headed is, okay, looking at resilience. And so resilience is the kind of back end of that of, okay, the same way you can misread your DNA, you can course correct and read your DNA correctly. And so what that codes for and how it codes is going to be a little different.
Yeah.
It's not that you can just, like, who is it? Like Will Smith or Michael Phelps, who like we researched their DNA and they're like
25 years old.
30. Will Smith's like got 33-year-old telomeres, and Michael Phelps has like more ATP in his mitochondria. It's not something that like
unfair.
You're going to wish yourself into that. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it is something that you can heal. And it also points to that like our bodies are designed to heal themselves. It's just whether or not they actually get the space to.
Yeah. I like talking to you because I couldn't have notes for this because what you do, and obviously, the education it takes, the practice it takes, the placements, all this stuff, blows my mind. It just doesn't, not that it doesn't make sense, but I'm just like, it
how did we get here?
Thinking. Yeah. And so I like couldn't prepare because I'm like, none of this is going to be relevant 20 minutes into this. So I'm having that moment right now because I'm just going like, when I think about like my body, and I know this is a book somewhere, I don't know who read it, but like keeping the score, like holding
The Body
score,
Keeps Score. It's a book.
And like, even this year, I feel like going through my own personal, like the job change and the career change and getting married and what that means to our family, like, and the racial side of that, the cultural side of that, the leader side of that, the man side of that, like
the poverty side of that.
The poverty side of that.
That was probably like one of the biggest sides of that.
No, literally. And because and
that's something we've generationally healed a lot.
Well, and even in our wedding, like we went to California and it was small and just our family, but the reason we decided to spend a ton of money to go do that, right, versus a ton of money just to do it at home was like, what is something that would give our family something that could help change that mindset? Yeah. And that this is here, this is possible, and it's available to you, right? Yeah. And that was really important to us on our day. We wanted that to like be kind of like a moment for us. And I'm listening to you talk about that. I'm considering like all these events that have happened to and through me this year. I'm just thinking about how like, I've come to a place where I guess the way to say it is like, I'm now in a place where I'm okay understanding that the same way Sarah said something to me a certain way, and it just happened to upset me in this way, even though that wasn't her intention. My body doesn't know the difference between the emotion I experienced that versus like you twisting my literal arm. Yes. And sure, the pain might be specific to the physical muscle in my arm, but my nervous system doesn't know the difference.
Yes. Your brain just goes pain, yes, pain, no.
Right. And how I respond out of that place and choosing to sit, and the aggressive nature that sitting is, which I really love that you said it that way, has like really forced me to adopt this mindset of like, I heard Erwin McManus say it as like this like warrior poet. Okay. Like I'm paid for how I think. Yes. And then from there, how I articulate it. I don't have calluses on my hands and that I am like working and providing this job, service, whatever, right? And so I take a lot of pride now and struggle when people don't recognize the poet that I am. Yeah. I think that's because, though, for so long, the only value I gave was being a warrior. Yes. And being an athlete, being a son, being a model, being, however I could serve someone, it was in a physical way. And so I guess my question in real time as I'm just talking to you is, for the person listening who's going, okay, that sounds great. That sounds amazing. I don't know that that's available to me. How do you help them get to a place where they can go see that stuff clearly and go, okay, I identify how I've seen my value and how I've seen myself be used or where I've struggled with that.
Yeah.
And then because of that, that's made me fall on or flight or flop or all that stuff. Like, how do you tell that person who's struggled or been in that place, this is the case and this is how then you can apply that and like use that to help yourself, if that makes any sense?
That makes perfect sense.
At all.
I have two answers to it. So the first is going to be the answer you expect.
Yeah.
The answer I've told you so much of like,
you can feel away, not be away.
You can feel away and not be away.
Yeah.
And so I would say with that, part of that is therapy, like go to therapy.
Sure.
I told you that for so long that I was like, even leaning into like your motivators, I was like, you're going to be married one day. You're going to have kids one day.
Yeah.
Like you want to go to therapy now, right? So that you can be further along in this healing process by the time you get there. And part of that was like, yeah, like you want to heal your DNA before you start passing it on to people.
Right.
But part of that is also, to my point before, of like your body will heal itself if it is given the space and the time. We don't a lot of times have the space and the time in our life. And that's what therapy creates for people. And so do I think you have to go to therapy to heal? No.
Right.
But I think a lot of people, that's how they carve that space in that time, or that's the most efficient way to carve that space in that time.
Yeah.
And so I also would say when you're in like absolute crisis, not the time.
Sure.
Right. When you're in absolute crisis, your job is to survive. That's what the F's are designed to help you do, is to help you survive.
Yeah.
Part of your brain is going to decide to like take over. They're going to go, oh, you and your little like human part of your brain aren't getting the job done. You're risking too much. We're going to take over. There's this concept of you having like a reptile brain, a mammal brain, and a human brain.
Like amygdala.
Your amygdala's in your mammal brain.
Thanks.
Yes. Thank you for not saying medulla oblongata and actually saying amygdala.
I've never heard that in my life. So
that's what your father would say right now.
Oh, well, he's a different breed. We'll get to him.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sure you'll have many episodes.
Oh, he's not allowed on either.
About him.
Yeah.
I did
he's
not say
allowed
with,
on yet either.
I did not say with him. I said about him.
Maybe one day. Yeah.
But with that, right, it's not necessarily that you have separate brains, but kind of how we chunk how we think about your brain, right? Your reptile brain will take over and it'll push you into one of the F's. And so it's doing that because your reptile brain doesn't care if your wife is mad at you. Your reptile brain doesn't care if you're financially broke. It doesn't care what the consequences are going to be in 2 weeks. Your reptile brain is like, am I alive or am I dead?
Oof. Yeah.
And that's all it cares about. Your mammal and your human brain obviously care about those things.
Right.
Your emotions exist in your mammal brain, and your like logic and decision making is in your human brain. But if your reptile brain, and if you think about like a lizard, you see just like
it's just getting away. Yeah.
We're in Cincinnati. There are lizards everywhere. They're just like frantically like jerking and like everything's a threat, right? That's that part of your brain. And so there's a reason why that's not the only part of your brain, but it does have the power to kind of take over and push you. And so when you're in crisis, that part is activated. That's not the time for you to be like, I'm going to heal. Nope. Your job's just to survive. Right. Post-crisis, when you're in that post-traumatic growth phase, okay, then there are things of, okay, what am I eating? What am I consuming? What's fueling me? I think that's very important. I think that on a spiritual and religious level.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that has to look religion specific, but I do think that does spiritually impact you and energetically impact you, and not in kind of the woo-woo way.
Sure.
And then the second thing I would say is there's got to be a space and a grace for you to develop self-awareness, because if you don't have that awareness piece, you're not fixing or healing anything, because you don't know it even needs fixed and healed.
You're bothering me right now because I got some people in my life that are not self-aware.
It's so annoying.
And I don't want to give them any grace whatsoever.
Right.
I'm like, there's no excuse. You should.
But you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, you're right.
And you said something earlier when you were talking about intention. And I was like, he's talking about intention versus impact, right? Because intention does not always dictate impact.
Right. Yeah.
And people have a hard time understanding that, or have a hard time separating the two.
Yeah, that's why people can't apologize. And they just justify, because they're like, oh, well, no, this isn't.
Because they're like, my intention was this. I was like, that's cool.
Yeah,
I'm not, I can't tell you what your intention was. This is what your impact was. Yeah. And so you have to like address your impact as well. And so part of that healing process is, okay, what is your intention? But looking at what is your impact? What's your impact on yourself? What's your impact on those around you? And that sometimes is hard to look at.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes that takes other people reflecting things to you for you to be able to look at.
You're giving me too many directions to go right now.
There's so many. I know.
I don't like it because I like all of them. But yeah, that's like, okay. So you are tickling the right part of my brain of like the intersection of like curiosity and like personal experience, right? Yes. So like I have experience with people, and I've experienced myself with all of those things.
Yes.
Right. And then I'm curious about just the way, we're all different, and we react differently. We hear things differently. We consume things differently. We understand things differently. And so the thing I want to get to is like, you're a therapist, in all the ways that you dictated. And as you're talking about all this stuff, there's like the joke about like comedians and therapists, right? Like you don't get in it without like a reason, right?
There's
like
a reason you're here.
You don't start doing it without
There's
a reason.
You're
and
here.
So how do you, right? Like, because I think the misconception is like your therapist is someone who not just hears this, understands it, and directly applies it correctly in their life, right?
Yeah.
And it's not to say that you're not that, but you would be the first to say, just because I know these things, I understand these things, and I have this knowledge, doesn't mean it's easy to practice.
Yeah.
And so when we sit here on our high horses and are talking about all these 10-letter words or $10 words, like all this stuff, someone's just hearing that going like, sure, okay, whatever. But like as a literal therapist and stuff, you're going, yeah, no, this is like hard.
No,
I struggle with this, and the third.
It's work.
Yeah.
Like, and that's one thing, like I have to be really intentional to take the time with the clients and patients I see, is to make sure I'm also like highlighting their progress and cheering them on and hyping them up of like, oh, do you see where you made that connection? Do you see where you did this thing differently? Because every time you come see me, it's work. And sometimes it's draining and sometimes it's not, but it's work. And so there's also this saying, like, as I'm teaching people to be therapists, I find myself saying it all the time of like, you cannot work harder than your client. You cannot outwork your client. Your client has to work at least as hard as you, if not more, for them to actually get any progress or anything out of the therapeutic process. And so sometimes, especially, I know I've done it as a therapist. I'm sure my therapist has done it with me, but I know I've hit points where I'm frustrated and I'm like, why is this not working? Why are we not progressing? Why are they not getting more of what they need out? And one, that's where, again, as a therapist, you have consultation, you have supervision, because the same way I just said, it's hard to see those things for yourself and your self-awareness. You need people to reflect it back to you. You need that as a therapist clinically too.
Yeah.
And so that's where I definitely have room for growth as like just a human of, I don't always do a great job of like stopping and being like, oh wait, like
I have a friend. I know how to do it.
Progress.
Yeah.
Don't do your goofy laugh at me. But like, I don't always slow down enough to be like, oh, look, I've worked hard, or, oh, look, this is like what's come from my work.
Right.
And so it's easy to just gloss on past that, but I do think that's an important part of the process is being able to recognize and like marinate. And sometimes that is attention to marinate in the progress or the success. Yeah. Especially depending on who you are. Yeah. But yeah.
I want to talk about our childhood.
Great.
I wanna give the people what they want.
Give the people what they want.
Knowing that our parents will listen to this and our entire family at some point, because I will make them.
Merry Christmas.
2 questions. Right, yeah. 2 questions. Because I want to answer them for you.
Okay.
A, what was our childhood like?
Okay.
And then B, what is it like? How do I want to say this? What is it like to have me as a brother?
Okay.
Not what is it like to be my sister? What is it like to have
you as a
me
brother?
as a brother? Those 2 questions.
I love how you reoriented around yourself.
It's about me. Yeah.
This is very middle child of you.
That's what I want to know. I started a podcast so I could ask people what they think of me. That's what I did.
Very middle child of you.
Whatever.
So our childhood, so many words come to mind for our childhood. Sure. Your sister asked me this the other day. I know she texted and asked you. She was like, describe our childhood in 3 words. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And she was like, don't overthink it.
Right. Text me now. I'm like, text me now. Doing something.
I was like, I was at mom's house. So there was like a wall between us. And she was like yelling at me. She was like, you haven't texted me back. And I was like, chaotic, unique, and yellow. Like those were the 3 words I gave her. Yeah. Which are accurate. And I do think, speaking to like chaotic and unique, it's something that like dad's always like, I think my life would make such a great film. And I'm like,
hardest eye roll in the world.
Eye roll in the world. And we kind of have this running joke where sometimes we'll like pause and turn and be like, where are the cameras?
Yeah, we're
like,
the best reality show.
We've got to be the Kardashians, the Secret Life of Mormon Wives. Like somebody should be here for
without
this.
The sex parties. Yeah.
Someone should be here for this. Yeah. With a camera. And so I feel that way. Pretty much from the start on which you came on. Well, no, really when Keziah came on the scene.
Sure.
Being the oldest, it was me for a little while. I have some memory of that, not too much. I could tell from pictures I was very spoiled. I had everything, whether it was like a dress, a shoe, a doll. I had everything, which was crazy how poor we were at the time. That this village just came around us and like bought everything. So, and then I remember, and I think I've told you this, but I remember distinctly like my 3rd or 4th birthday wishing for a sibling. Like that's what I wished for on my birthday candles. And you were born not even 3 weeks before I turned 4. Right. I did the same thing and wanted a sister, and we got Keziah, which I don't think I had some magical birthday powers. Otherwise, I would have had a lot of other things that would have come to fruition. But I wanted siblings. I don't even really remember how I knew siblings were a thing at that point.
Sure.
But I ran around with mom and dad. I mean, mom and dad were in college when they had me on purpose.
Yeah, they were married. Don't do that.
They were married for like 3 years, and they purposefully got pregnant. They like sat down and prayed about it and decided they wanted to have a kid in the middle of college.
It sounds so crazy.
So crazy. Yeah. And here I am, that kid. And so I was at both of their college graduations. You were at mom's graduation.
Wow. Yeah.
You're like, maybe like, I don't think you were even a year old.
I did a lot of things in that first year.
You were like in your rat tail phase. I remember that for sure.
We'll talk about that later.
But things didn't really take off until when I was 5. They moved us from Price Hill to the suburbs, and they moved us from an apartment to a house.
Yeah.
And that's when things like really like took off and changed. That's not when we necessarily stopped like having issues in terms of like poverty, but for a while we had no issues and the money was flowing and things seemed pretty like suburban and peaceful. Until I was about 8. And so then when I was 8, because I was born when I was 8, Granny Moon died. Granny Moon being our great grandmother. So our dad's grandmother.
Played a big role in like our family and everything.
Was the matriarch, held everybody together, was a huge influence on Dad. And so she died that same year. And that's when things kind of just changed into like this weird, not that they were normal before that, but in terms of like being dysfunctional and weird and kooky and so unique. That's kind of like the turning point in my mind. And I don't know, it's weird because for the longest I didn't know we were different. And I know for people listening, like, it's like, what does she mean they were different? But we were just, the things we were taught and how we were expected to be was just like this huge amalgamation of like mixed signals and like contradictions of like, be a fighter and go whoop someone's ass, but like you never start anything and you're peaceful, and like Jesus said turn the other cheek,
but finish it
like, and it's like, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm just 8. Like,
I'm 4, like finish it, like that.
I was gonna say, and to my point that like things were still a little bit that way even before I was 8. I remember like even the conversations of like, if someone's like, I'm gonna shoot you in the head, or you say you're not a Christian, and it'd be like, Dad'd be like, you better let them shoot you in the head, and you'd be like, I'm 4.
The amount of times I was a kid, I'm like, I'm gonna die for this.
I'm gonna die. I thought I was gonna die for being a Christian, and it really was like, because from day one, he really just drilled that into us of like, this is the one thing that you don't let anybody push you on, and compromise was not a word we had growing up at all. And whether that was like race, whether that was religion, whether that was like school performance, athletic performance, like compromise was not acceptable, much like fear. Which is ironic because we're all anxious as hell. Parents included.
That's part 2.
But like, compromise was not allowed. Failure was not allowed. But we also had like really fun times. We were so creative and we were so goofy, and like some of the pranks we pulled off. And so it's
like you said, like our life, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
And if you were to hear that whole like soliloquy or monologue and go, well, that's depressing. It's like, it was pretty fun though.
It was great. It was fun.
Like, pretty like funny too. Like a lot of jokes, a lot of just ridiculousness.
Yes.
Like me doing just ridiculous things for your guys' attention. And stuff,
you especially.
Yeah.
But also like some of the things, it was just also interesting, the things we were like allowed to do and the things we weren't allowed to do. Of like, yeah, sure, you can drink. We can make mudslides for the whole household. It doesn't matter that you're 8. You want to go play outside? No. Like,
that's attention.
Like,
that's attention.
That's attention.
Yeah.
And so it was, and I don't even, that's an example, but like everything was not always that, what's the word I want? Not scandalous, but that like extreme. It wasn't always 8-year-olds making mudslides, although that did happen.
Yeah. But it was being put in a position of either internal conflict or, like you said, there wasn't compromise. Like acceptance of what I need or want doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter here, but when I go there, wherever there is, I better not compromise either. And so that, I think that's where, if I think about me when I would like go to Catholic school and refuse to do certain activities, or like, I don't remember what book we were reading. We were reading some book at the end of the day every day in 4th grade. And I like wasn't about it. And so I boycotted the thing and went and sat in the hallway every day for a year. And like, they would call my parents and be like, she won't pray the rosary, or she won't read this book, or she won't do this. And they'd be like, yeah, and she's not going to.
Right.
Like, so there was a power in it too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, there were definitely positives in that it gave us certain strengths and certain confidences that I don't think other 9 and 10-year-olds had.
Right. For sure.
Because I could look a grown woman in the face and say, yeah, you should call my dad.
And mean it.
Yeah. And to the point that the woman would be like unsettled and be like, wait, what?
Do I want to call her dad?
Do I want to call her dad? And I'm like,
no, call him.
I think that's a great suggestion. You should call my dad.
Yeah. Please call him.
He's going to tell you I'm not doing it either.
Or he will call you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or he'll be here to get me 45 minutes early because General
leaving.
Hospital is about to start.
And we don't miss.
General Hospital.
That's funny. What as a sibling,
having Jay.
What is it like to have me as a brother?
It is super fun and super comforting and so infuriating.
I can believe it.
Because talk about intention versus impact. Like, you can have such great intentions.
Oh, I have the best intentions.
And your impact just blows up sometimes.
Oh man.
Like, really just blows up. Life. And sometimes will have me in my feels.
I had this intention because I caused tension. That's
and I'll have to like come talk to you about it. And once we talk about it, like
good,
we're good.
Yeah.
But like in between, it's like, what is he doing and how could he do that? And oh my God, you are one of, if not my best friend. You're incredibly, it's been kind of cool to watch you like through all phases of your life, because I'm old enough that I can remember like you being born. And to watch you go from like blue skidooing to like your Star Wars phase to your like popular athlete jock high school king phase, and then also to watch you go from that into like who you are as a creative, and to watch you just like pontificate in front of grown men,
and they're just like, wow,
and they just like listen to you, and I'm like, this is my baby brother, like I'm not even listening.
right.
That's been cool to watch. I think like you've always had this like magnetism that draws people in. I don't think you always realized it.
Yeah, it wasn't inherent.
It was there, but wasn't something I feel like you fully tapped into and recognized in yourself until like you really got into your 20s.
Yeah. Can I tell you what that is, by the way? This is a recent real time. I just figured this out and I'm proud of it. I realized, and for the people who don't know like Bible stuff, there's this story or a dude who's praying. I also started doing this. So I promise I'll get to the point. But I heard this person talking and they were like, it is written about the Bible and like Christian stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a great excuse if you just don't know where something is in the Bible. You could just say like, it is written. And then just keep talking about it, and you don't have to have the specific
you don't
like,
have
verse
to have
and all
the
this
verse.
stuff. So it is written. And this guy's talking about like his thorn, like this like problem and thing in his side that he's like asking God to take away, but like God won't do it, right?
Yes.
I think my thorn is that I'm sensitive.
I don't view sensitivity. Okay.
And it's going to turn around.
Go ahead.
This is not a negative
I view
thing.
sensitivity as a superpower.
And that's where I'm going.
Ahead.
That's where I'm going with it is I think all the times I would pray occasionally and do that stuff as a kid and different stuff in adulthood even, I don't think it was that I watched porn at the time. I don't think it was that I was having sex with people at the time. I don't think it's that I didn't have self-control. I don't think it was that I was addicted to smoking or drinking or all this addictive stuff. I think it's that I was sensitive.
Yeah.
And what the reason it could be taken from me is because it's my greatest superpower.
Yes.
In that I have a sensitivity and not just knowing what someone needs to hear, but how they need to hear it.
Yeah.
And that magnetism isn't this inherent like extrovertedness.
No, because you're not an extrovert.
I'm not, even though I present that way sometimes.
Yeah.
It's this like intrinsic like just me being able to like be sensitive to people, what they're giving, how they're giving it, and what they need in response to that. And me reframing and like my whole mind just changing of like, oh, you mean every girl who's ever told me I've been sensitive, or any person who's tried to discipline me and tell me stop crying, or you're just being sensitive, or why are you acting that way, or that's not what I did, this is what I did, you're just being whatever. Like they were reacting to how deeply I was feeling something, or the place I was coming out of. But that didn't make sense to them, not because I'm so unique and crazy and whatever. It's because they don't have the same capacity to feel things.
Yes.
And that my sensitivity isn't that I'm weak and all these things. It's that I just feel more strongly or deeply and have a higher capacity to feel than the average person.
Yes.
And so for me, that sensitivity is my greatest strength. And instead of being this person where like, I really want to work on my weaknesses. Sure, I want to focus on my strengths. Like I am incredibly sensitive in the best way possible, and because of that I have an ability to communicate in a certain way, or I have an ability to hear something and be able to distill it in what someone's actually saying or meaning. And that even in relationships, that sensitivity in a conflict conversation where I frustrated you to no end and you're going, I can't believe he did this. How could he have done this? I've never known him to do this. He's changed. He's different. And I don't like him anymore. I get in front of you. I'm like, hey, what's up? Like, what are you? And you're just like writhing with anger. And I'm just like, well, like, I'm sorry. Like, I really am sorry. And I know that like me apologizing isn't going to fix this. So like in the actions I can take, what is that? And then too, like, I can completely understand where you're coming from. Like, boy, and you're just like, damn it. You're supposed to argue with me.
You're supposed to argue with me. And so as you were talking, I was just thinking about our parents respectively and their sensitivity, right? And how
I've never thought about that in my life.
They don't view theirs as a superpower
at all.
And they definitely have it. It has the potential to be.
For sure.
And for them, it's like a shame and a weakness and something they've not quite figured out how to navigate. And in very different ways for the two of them respectively.
Yeah.
But put the two of them together.
Right. Yeah.
And then like, I think all three of their kids have a certain level of sensitivity, right?
Right.
I think you, have exactly what you just described.
I'm like the kid in Sky High, the main character. Okay. Late bloomer, but I have both powers.
You can fly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm strong. Continue. Sorry.
Didn't I hear that they were coming out
I
with
heard
a
that
reboot?
Too, but I feel like that was just like on Instagram. Like, I don't know if it was real. I hope it is, though.
I hope it is. I would love a reboot.
I'd totally watch it. Yeah.
Yeah. Side note. But you made me think about mom and dad and their respective sensitivities and how like also how we've inherited them but how they look different in us with our different personalities and just the different choices we've made, because that is a difference we've made to sit in tension for certain things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to not look away and to heal even when it's work, and not to say that they did anything wrong or actively didn't. They had very different lives and they had a very different set of cards handed to them than we did. But if I think of us like generationally, what we have done with that same sensitivity, it looks drastically different if you look at the three of us versus looking at them.
And to me, like, that's the thing that kind of comes around with the resilience thing of even, the mindset to go like, this is my greatest weakness, to like, no, this might just be like my greatest strength.
Yeah.
And actually harnessing this for good. And not like the pity or the shame or the whatever.
Yeah.
Is not just effective, but it's the way to listen, connect, and build relationship with people.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely how I got my wife. That's absolutely how I'm able to heal and solve for when I have impacts that I don't intend to have. And I want to answer this question for you. And we got a couple questions left that I want to get in before we end. But I feel like having you as a sister was just so frustrating.
I'm sure.
And revealing, though, because, you were top of your class, smartest person I knew. And you're like, yeah, you're smart, but also, too, it was like, why you were smart. Like you were smart to prove someone wrong.
I was.
And it wasn't that you weren't like smart and you just like studied really hard. It's like you were smart and you like to, it's like this like casual rub in your face. Like, yeah, you don't like me and I got 106 in your class just to piss you off.
Yes,
like,
I definitely did that.
And at the same time, like because you were the oldest, you were put in a position to sacrifice in ways that were so unfair. Yeah. Right. And that's not just like you know, raising us in seasons where mom and dad were struggling with stuff or different things, but like, you know, there's still to this day, I'll probably get emotional talking about it, but I remember like you telling me like you had to leave the high school you went to where you formed all your friendships and stuff.
Yeah.
And when you first went to the high school I graduated from, Walnut, you're like, yeah, I had to eat lunch in the bathroom.
Yeah, I did.
And that broke my heart because I was just like, this is someone who I know like deeply, am really close to, good friends with. And the fact that she's been in this compromising position where in high school and in this situation, like people have already formed their best friends. You're a junior going on senior. They're not looking for a new best friend or someone to add to their group or whatever. And it was just like, okay, sure, there's a new person. Like that like cold shoulderedness.
Yeah.
Combined in with like we're introverted people. It's not natural for us to just let people in and make
school
ourselves.
I've gone to.
Literally, and
I went to 10 different schools for the record.
Right.
So.
And seeing that, it literally broke my heart. And then as we went into adulthood, like you went to Notre Dame and like you had your own struggles with that, but even too like the like walking on the edge of the sword of like you're this mixed girl who has this great like background in terms of like your GPA and the school you went to, and now you're at this prestigious, like it's not Ivy, but you're right there, like Notre Dame, right? Like tuition so high, you're paying none of it because you're that good, right?
Yeah.
And you change majors and you're going through this hard time and you're away from home for the first time in a way that it's like compromised you. Yes. Like not in a way that like, oh, she's gone, like I'm out of here, whatever, but like you're going away and going like, are they going to be okay?
Yeah.
And that like that put you in a position that didn't put me and Keziah in a bad spot. That put you in a bad spot.
Yeah.
And then coming back from that, and you know, I'm different. She's different. Our parents, right? Like that's a dynamic and all these things. And it's like hard in the challenge of like, you know, having to live up to everything you've done on paper and everything you've done as the person you are. But it's revealing in the way that like, you know, you have not only walked me through a lot of those things and seen a lot of those things, but, you know, coming to the place where you're not my mom and you're not just an authority in my life. You're actually like a peer, a friend, and someone who I can speak into too. Like, and seeing that where like, I remember like distinctly the day I realized like, oh, my dad's not a superhero.
Yeah. And
then having the day where I realized like, oh, my dad is not this crazy like tycoon.
Yeah.
Right. The day I realized like, oh, my mom's not this, she's like that. Right. Like, and having that realization with you in a way where it wasn't like, oh, like Micaiah isn't something. It's just like, oh, Micaiah's she's just not this figure to me because she's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
And seeing like even just your adulthood journey and like the ways you've ebbed and flowed and how different that is even just from my life and how that looks. And, you know, sitting in tension, right? Living a life of tension. It's like, you've totally done that just in a completely different way. Yeah. Right. And so I like admire you so much. I'm so proud of you. And the same way you frustrate me so much.
I'm sure.
And I'm just like, what is she doing? You know, but what you're doing is you're doing what you know, and you're doing what you've like learned, your learned behaviors, and you're doing your best to like work through that stuff. And so I say that one to affirm you, but two, just cause like I see that, recognize that, and like being your brother is so fun because of that. And like I have said multiple times on here so far, like there's such a tension of being a middle child and the only boy, because it's like, oh, we live in a democracy. It's like, no, we don't. You know, like, okay, let's vote. Where are we going to go? I lose. We're going to Target, right? Like, where are we going to eat? I lose. We're going like, oh, well, what are we going to watch? I lose. We're watching
John Tucker Must Die.
Yeah, and so I've seen every chick flick, right? Like, I always say, like, I can find soft seating in any store. It's not a problem, right? Like, I will fall asleep here. There is no question, right? You're going to find a lifeless body. I'm not dead. I'm asleep. And just like that experience and stuff, I think a lot of people look at their family and they go, they're crazy. They look at their experience and they go this, or they do the opposite. My family, there's nothing wrong with them. My life, there was nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And I think what you represent to me and what I think our family and the potential of even this conversation represents is like the mess and chaos and uniqueness of our upbringing and who we are as individuals and the different ways we've taken that, right?
Yeah.
Is something that sheds a light and I think can inform people on both sides, right? And the tension of living in that responsibility and awareness, right? Like the ignorance thing is true of like, oh, well, once I found this out, well, I kind of am just responsible for how I choose to act, move, grow, and further and inform other people. And so I've gone in this whole I'm monologuing. You caught me monologuing.
You're monologuing.
Right. I say that to say,
good.
can you, to close, I was told I need to give better calls to action. So you're going to do it for me. So can you encourage a person on both sides of that, the person who thinks everything is perfect, but doesn't maybe have like the system or the internal like tools and stuff, and the person who's going like, yeah, this just is what it is. Like we just push through. They're just like that. We deal with it. Like, can you give an encouragement to either person? And then what would be the call to action for a listener, whether they're in crisis or not, that you would like encourage them to do this on the end of listening to our conversation?
Yeah. I would say to the person that like everything is perfect, right? There's an anxiety, there's a risk for sure. And like, what does it mean if everything isn't perfect? And that I would challenge and encourage you that like on the other side of that risk is worth it, right? There's a depth of intimacy. There's a level of comfort that you can't get when everything is perfect. And reality is nothing is ever perfect, right? It's just how much we really convince ourselves that we're in that space. But a lot of the things you want, a lot of the things you're going to naturally crave as a human, like intimacy and comfort, you're not going to get continuing to put up that facade. And so just wrestling with the idea of, okay, what are the consequences, or what does it mean if my family's not perfect? What does it mean if I'm not perfect? I say that as someone who struggles with perfectionism.
Absolutely.
Heavy. Yeah. And so no judgment in that sense. But
the car's full. It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. Keep talking.
I was like, I don't know what that sound is. But yeah, I would just challenge you to take a look at, okay, yeah, what would that do? What is so scary about it? Because what makes it scary is going to be unique to you. Yeah. And so figuring that out seems like it's kind of at the crux of deciding, you're going to go ahead and jump and look at the things and sit in the tension, or you're not, and you're going to just bury your head in the ground and stay perfect. For the person who this is just as good as it gets, I think I don't have the adjective I want for that, because I think that's easy to do. The risk with that is ignorance, is potentially laziness. Not that you're lazy just because you're in that space. That's not what I'm saying. But because I can't quite land on the adjective I want, that's the closest I think I'll get to it, of this being the best that there is. Everything is always expanding and growing and evolving. If you're not evolving, you're dying. And so literally, if you're not evolving, you're dying. That was not my point, but that speaks to you as well. And so whatever is the best, whatever is the thing that seems unattainable or unimaginable, it's not going to stay that way. Something else is going to evolve to be that. And so as something else evolves to be that, you have the potential to not only still reach the unattainable thing, but especially whatever yesterday's unattainable thing was, because everything's expanding and growing. And so in terms of
like what they would do, or
a call to action, I would say like my biggest challenge would be looking at your life and just taking kind of almost like a census of like, where am I at and what are the things that I want to be different, but also doing that through a lens of self-compassion, not doing that just to like rip yourself apart. But what are the things that are opportunities for growth? What are the areas that are not giving me a return that I really want, or that I'm not showing up how I want to in?
Right.
And then trying to figure out, okay, what's the barrier there? Because sometimes the barrier is not you.
Yeah.
Right. And so if the barrier is not you, you need a very different strategy than if the barrier is you.
Right.
But just looking at what is the barrier there, and then investing, whether that's your time, your energy, for a little bit, it's okay to be a black hole and an energy eater and suck all the content.
Thank you so much
to figure it out.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. But like, it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
There's a purpose in doing that. That's almost like a phase in a season, right? That's where you start. That's not where you end, but that is where you start. And so figuring out, okay, what is the area in my life that I want to start? That I would say identifying that is like your first step.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been an episode of In Need of Attention. Thank you, Micaiah. I love you.
Love you.